Okay, we're going to talk about composite figures. So, a composite figure is made up of squares, rectangles, triangles, circles, any two-dimensional figures. And a composite figure is not a standard regular shape. So what that means is that there's not a certain formula to find the area. So you have to actually divide it into figures that we know how to find the area of. And then you're going to add it up and find the sum. So let's just talk about how to find area of these different shapes. Okay, a square is like a rectangle, and so it would be length times width, but because the length and the width are the same, that's like side times side. So we're actually just going to say area equals side squared. Rectangle is area equals base times height. And then trapezoid, there's two different ways. We could say area equals 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Or we can say area equals base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. I don't know why, I just like that one better. Triangle, you can say area equals 1/2 base times height, or same thing, area equals base times height divided by 2. This is all review. We've already learned all this stuff. So area of a circle is area equals pi r squared. And a semicircle is half of a circle. So that means we're going to say that it's 1/2 pi r squared. Or you can say area equals pi r squared divided by 2. Either one of those will work. So now let's go ahead and do an example. I'm going to start with this first one. I noticed that this has different shapes. I've got this rectangle and I have a semicircle here. So I'm going to start with the rectangle, and I know that that would be this part right here. So the formula for a rectangle is area equals base times height. So if I plug that in, I'm going to say 12 times 4. So the area of the rectangle is 48 square inches. Now I need to find the area of the semicircle. Okay, so I'm going to find the area of this semicircle right here. So the formula for that is area equals, I like the pi r squared divided by 2. So I'm going to plug those formulas in. Now, one thing I want you to really pay attention to is that this right here, that 12 inches, that's not the radius, that's the diameter. So I actually need to find the radius, and I know the radius is half of that. So what would my radius be? My radius is going to be 6 inches, and I'm going to need that for the formula over here. So I'm going to plug in my formulas. So I'm going to have area equals, I'm going to use 3.14 for pi, times 6 squared divided by 2. So I'm going to take a moment and plug that into the calculator. And I'm going to get 56 and 52/100 square inches. So am I done? No, not quite. Now I need to actually take those and add them together, because this right here was 48 and this was 56 and 52/100. So now I need to add those two together to get the area of all of it. And when I do, I am going to get that the area is equal to 104 and 52/100 square inches. Now it does tell me to round to the nearest tenth, so if I did that, I would get the area as 104 and 5/10 square inches. Because again, that is inches as the unit. Now looking at this right here, what do you see? What two shapes do you see? Well, I see a triangle and a semicircle. I'm going to start with a triangle. So I know that my formula for triangle is area equals base times height divided by 2. So looking at that, my base is going to be this right here, this 10. And then the height is going to be this right here, the 8, okay? So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say area is equal to 10 times 8 divided by 2. And that's going to get me area equals 40 centimeters squared, or square centimeters. So this right here is 40 centimeters squared. Now I've got to find the area of the semicircle. Again, it's a semicircle there. So I'm going to use the formula. Okay, we talked about it up here. If you need to go back and look at it, semicircle is area equals pi r squared divided by 2. So I'm going to use that formula. Area equals pi r squared divided by 2. And again, pay attention to this. This is not the radius, this is the diameter. So I need to make sure that I look for the diameter. And the diameter is going to be what? 5. So I need to make sure that I use that when I'm putting this into the formula. So I'm going to say A equals 3.14 times 5 squared divided by 2. And when I put that in the formula, I mean in the calculator, when I'm going to do that, I'm going to put 3.14 times 5 squared divided by 2. And I'm going to get 39.25. So that means the area of this is 39.25 square centimeters. Okay, I'm done. No, I'm not, am I? No, because now I need to go ahead and put that all together. So I'm going to find the sum of that. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 40 square centimeters and the 39 and 25/100 square centimeters. And I am going to get 79 and 25/100. Now this did say round to the nearest tenth. So because of that, we're going to say that the area is 79 and 3/10 square centimeters. Okay, let's do some more practice. Okay, this first one, I need to look and say, what can I divide this into? So first of all, I see that this is a rectangle, right? So I know I'm going to use the formula of a rectangle. And then here I see a semicircle and a semicircle. Well, if I have two semicircles, what's that mean? That's a circle. Since they're the same size, because they have the same diameter, that's a circle. So I don't need to use the formula for semicircle. I can use the formula for circle. So let's go ahead and first let's find the area of the rectangle. And I do think it's very important to write your formulas and then write it with the values in there. So I noticed that my base is 16 and my height is 4. So that's going to be 16 times 4, and that's going to get me 64. So that is 64 square meters. Now I'm going to use the formula for a circle, area equals pi r squared, to find the area of both this part right here and this right here. That'll be that together. Okay, so that back to what we've been saying in the past, this 4 is not my radius, that's what? My diameter. So I have to find the radius, and the radius is half of it. So the radius is going to be 2. So when I do this, I'm going to say 3.14 times 2 squared. And I'm going to get that the area is 12 and 56 hundredths. So between the two of these, that's 12 and 56 hundredths square meters, okay? But now, what do I have to do? Now I have to add them together to find the area of the total composite figure. So if I add them together, I'm going to get 76 and 56 hundredths square meters. Now it does say round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to say 76 and 6/10 square meters. Okay, now let's look at number 2. So I need to decide, what shapes do I have? Okay, I see a semicircle. Okay, so that means I'm going to use that formula of the semicircle, which is area equals pi r squared divided by 2. And then what else do I see? I see, what is this shape right here? That's got one pair of parallel lines. That's a trapezoid. So I know I'm going to use the formula for trapezoid, which is area equals, I like the base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. So I need to be able to know, what do these formulas mean? What am I going to use to plug them in? So for the first one, area equals 3.14 times r. My r is this right here. Okay, just half of that. And what's half of 3? 1.5. So 1.5 squared divided by 2. This is when you're glad that you're using the calculator, because I don't want to do all that work either. Okay, and I got 3 and 825 thousandths, which we're going to round to the nearest tenth, and we're going to say that that is 3 and 8/10 square centimeters, okay? Now I need to do the trapezoid. So the trapezoid, I need to have a base and a height. So my base is going to be, I've got this base right here, which is 10. Okay, so area equals 10. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just fill this in. And then my other base is this right here. That's going to be 6. And then times my height, this is how tall it is, okay, if I'm looking at it from the other direction. So that's going to be 3. So 10 plus 6 is 16. So then I'm going to do 16 times 3 divided by 2. And that's going to get me area equals 24 centimeters squared. Now, am I done? No. Now I need to put it all together and add it all up. So I'm going to do 24 plus 3 and 8/10, and I am going to get 27 and 8/10 square centimeters. So here is my answer. Okay, let's look at this one. I see this square. Okay, knowing that, I just know that that's going to be area. I can say side times side or base times height, just to keep it a little bit more simple. And then I'm going to see this right here is going to make up a circle. But then I'm going to have another one of those right here. So I really have 2 circles. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to have my area of my circle, which would be A equals pi r squared. But then I need to multiply that by 2 because I've got 2 full circles, right? So let's look at what are the measurements for this so that I can go ahead and solve this and plug this in. So for the square, area is base times height, and I see right here that's 10 and 10. So I have 10 times 10, which is 100. So this is 100 millimeters squared. And now I need to find the area of the circles. So the radius, so I have 3.14 times 10. No, I hope you just said, no, what are you doing? It's not 10. What is it going to be? 5 squared. And then I'm going to multiply it by 2 because I have 2 of these circles. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. I'm going to do 3.14 times 25 times 2. And I'm going to get 157 millimeters squared. Am I done? Sure not, because what do I have to do? I have to add that up. So I'm going to add the area of the circles and the square together, and I'm going to get that the area is 257 millimeters squared. Okay, one more problem. This one is a little bit trickier. I'm going to go ahead and start with the fact that I know this right here is a rectangle, and I know that this is a semicircle. So if I know that that is a rectangle, I'm going to start with area equals base times height. And then for my other one, I am going to say the area equals pi r squared divided by 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So for this first one, base times height, I have area equals 24 times 10, which would be 240 millimeters squared. Now this next one is where it gets a little trickier. I have to figure out what my radius is. This is where it's tricky because I know that this whole thing is 24, right? So this can get really kind of a little bit more difficult. If I'm doing this, I know that this right here is 10, right? So if that is 10 and the whole thing has to be 24, what does the diameter of that semicircle have to be? The diameter of this has to be 14 because 14 plus 10 would be 24. Do I need the diameter? No, I need the radius. So I need half of that. So that would be 7. So when I do this, I'm going to use 7. So I'm going to say 3 14/100 times 7 squared divided by 2. And I'm going to get 76 93/100, but when I round that to the nearest tenth, I'm going to get 76 9/10. So that's square millimeters. I'm not done because I have one more step. I need to add this and this. So I'm going to add those together to find the area of the total shape, and I'm going to get that my area is 316 9/10 square millimeters. That was a lot of work, and I'm glad you stuck it out with me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you later.